As the seconds tick down, Geelong celebrate. They are through to their 19th grand final and couldn't have done it in better style. It's the Swans and the Pies Cinderella story finally grinds to a halt.
Hello, I'm Damian Barrett. Welcome to Access All Areas. We're here, as always, thanks to Crypto.com. The 2022 AFL Grand Final is set. Geelong versus Sydney. We'll get to that in a moment. But unusually, on the Monday of a Grand Final week, Matthew Lloyd, we can also get to talk about this year's Brownlow Medalist.
Yeah, congratulations, Patrick Cripps. Awesome season from Paddy. Disappointing at the end that not make the finals, but look at him, Damo. He got 10 votes in 2020 and only 5 votes last year. And I asked myself about him. What is he? You know, because he slowed up a little bit. He looked sore at times. He looked banged up. I don't think he was using his teammates as well as he should have. He was trying to do a little bit too much. And I think with the acquisition of Chera, the improvement of Kennedy and those types of players helped him. And Michael Voss coming on board. So congratulations to him. He had an awesome season yet again.
And prior to those 2 seasons you've just referenced, he was the AFL Players Association choice as MVP of the entire competition for that year. Ran third in that year's Brownlow Medal.
Yeah, I think he got confused about what size he should play at. I think at times he's been bigger and said, I need to be powerful around the stoppages. Then he wasn't moving too well. Then he said, I need to strip weight. And then he lost what his strength was. And I think he's found the perfect balance now, and he's got a healthy body.
So Brownlow medalist of 2022, the Coleman medalist of 2022, the Coleman medalist of 2021, and 3 All-Australians in the 2022 team, and no finals still for Carlton.
No, and it just shows you need a lot of role players, and you need everyone playing just for the team, and that's probably what Carlton, just in key moments, didn't have throughout the year.
They can only, as all other teams can do, Lordo, aspire to be one of these 2 teams in Saturday's game, and Sydney Swans' win over Collingwood. It got close, it got nervous, it got tense, but they were 36 points up at one stage. What impressed you most about that point of the game?
I love how they take away the strengths of the opposition. So I thought they, like they did to Collingwood in round 22, they took away the run. So the run off halfback, you just didn't see it. I think Nick Dacos was shut down. Jordan De Goey was closed down. And then their ball movement. Once they win the ball back off turnover, they just put you away. I thought the competitive nature of Tom Hickey in the ruck, the key forwards of Sydney, we're going to get to Franklin shortly. I thought, they were by far and away the better side for 3 quarters. You thought how far until they probably lost their run and played a little bit safe in that last quarter.
Now, we'd seen this story so many times before this year where Collingwood out of nowhere. Now, this is the goal, the controversial, hands in back on Darcy Moore for Tom Papley and maybe even controversial Mark Pay. But they needed that goal, the Swans, because without it, they don't win the game of footy. Because from that moment onwards and prior to that, they had been surging in so typical Collingwood 2022 fashion.
Yeah, and as I touched on earlier, and you said how the Swans made it to the grand final, they weren't allowing this. So they were on to Collingwood. They just suffocated Collingwood like they did the previous encounter.
This goal of side bottoms, the degree of difficulty I think has been lost on some people.
Yeah, great goal, and they were coming. I reckon another minute or 2 Collingwood are playing in this grand final. And then you just see this moment, a big pack is crashed. It's a little bit of pressure from Collingwood. They unfortunately weren't there for the first 3 quarters. It was 26-0, Damo, to start the game. Sydney are just hanging on at this period of time. Rushed through this behind.
And this ball could have had a boot on it from a Collingwood player, might check.
Yeah. But the better side for 3 quarters won. Collingwood can talk about it all they like, but I think they moving forward for next year, you can't always want to be coming back. We're going to look at the record of how many tight games they had. You want to be doing the job in the first 3 quarters like Sydney did, rather than trying to come back in the last.
We'll get to that. I wanted you to delve deeper into that thought process. Errol Goulden's form in 2022, Lotto's been pretty extraordinary, hasn't it? And he was, again, an unsung contributor to what happened in these frantic moments late.
He laid 4 tackles in the last quarter. He laid 7 for the game. He's got a lethal left foot on him. But some of this stuff, like that's why they're into the grand final. And that's why I think they're a big chance against Geelong, because they're not intimidated by anyone, and Goulden's one of those players.
It's a huge tackle.
It's just got better and better and better as the season's gone on with his physicality.
And this one here too, again, the ball's nearly out, but he just takes the moment, seizes the moment, sets up the play. They got so far ahead, Lordo, and they looked like they were about to run away with it when they kicked clear in the third quarter. It all came on the back of the centre bounce usage of the ball, and we'll see what happens here. So Warner gets on the end of this one and kicks it to Buddy Franklin. You'll see Buddy Franklin mark another centre clearance and Isaac Heaney. Is this the key to what they need to do against the Cats?
Yeah, it's a great point, Damo, because this 6-6-6 rule is at centre bounces, obviously you have to have 6-6-6, and it's what you need to do to get balls into Geelong's defence when they've only got 6 back there. Once they get an extra back there, it's very, very hard to score. They made a meal of the Brisbane Lions when they got, De Conning, Collar Jasny, Tom Stewart, those layoff players who do that.
But could they be exposed if they managed to get the ball out as quickly
that's right.
and in that manner?
That is a key component of that. With the Sydney forward line, you've got Heaney who can expose anybody, Franklin, Reid if he's playing. So, that's the aim for Sydney.
Although Franklin was very good.
Yeah.
Now, it's 2 goals only in a career that's got 1,047 of them next to his name. But it wasn't just the goals, was it, Lloyd? Now, it didn't start great for him. He was on Maynard, which is a prize in itself. But he didn't mind getting in some aggro moments just to get himself going. And then he became the key player. But by doing things like this too, Lord, that's not a stat. But the fact the ball drops and the Swans kick a goal.
I think it's the first time we've spoken about him like this. Usually it's after he's kicked 6 and you say, how good's Buddy? One of the most talented players the game's ever seen. But this was a different sort of Buddy Franklin performance. He would have been hurt by what happened against Stephen May, and he said to himself, this is huge. I'm going to bring the ball to ground much, much better than I did.
And look, this mark too, 2 minutes to go, and he needed to take that. If that spills free, we know what happens.
Oh, the tight SCG ground, you have to compete hard as a forward, and he played a different sort of game, but as influential as any Swan, I would have thought.
OK, so he was outstanding. You saw McDonald being the beneficiary of him taking Collingwood players out. Sam Reid, who's been so good in the back 2/3 of this season, unlikely as we speak, yet to be officially ruled out. Who takes his place? You feel it's Amati, Joel Amati?
I would go Amati, but Hayden McLean was one of the emergencies on the weekend. Amati wasn't, which may say that they believe he's in better form, but I don't think McLean's played since round 8. So
you do a like for like in terms of size.
Yeah,
you wouldn't take a Cunningham.
I would, because Isaac Heaney was having to take ruck stoppages, and I think that's when the run started late. You can handle it for a little bit, but across half a game, that hurts you, or across a full game in a grand final. I think Blixarves and Stanley would expose that unless they bring in another tool.
They've provided so many moments for us this year, Collingwood, and particularly for their own fans, and yet they fell short of a qualifying final and a prelim final by less than a kick. What do they need to do? And as you address that, let's compare them with the teams that have made the grand final and another one above them on the ladder after the home and away season when it comes to the key stats that are sustainable, at least historically.
OK, so what jumps out at us is their average winning margins well off the top the 3 other sides, 13 points. Margins by 1 to 10 points, they've won 9. That's not sustainable, and time spent in front is 48%. That's not sustainable to get to top 4 again next year. And what I'll say is they're the 18th ranked clearance side in the competition. So it's interesting if Brodie Grundy leaves, what they do there in the midfield, because I think they're very poor. So then you're losing the centre clearances, the ball's going straight back to your back line, and that's where all their scores are starting from. The competition will go to scoreline, Nick Dacos, Johnny Noble, Braden Maynard, Howe, Moore, how to keep that ball in the forward line. So I think they have to improve around their clearances. And I'm not sure McStay's the answer, but they need a key forward as well, which is an issue for them, relying on the Smalls and Brodie Myercheck.
They created so much magic in the course of the season, and nearly the ultimate magic, but ultimately they start equal like every other team when it goes into 2023. Scores from turnovers for the Cats in their prelim final, Lordo, against the Lions. It was as it has been for much of the season. This is the Cats' weapon. They forced a turnover, they capitalise on it with their own scoring.
At 3/4 time, scores from turnovers, 60 points Geelong, 6 the Brisbane Lions. So it was a masterclass from Prescott with an experienced team who knows what they're doing versus the uncertainty of Brisbane, who were just taught a football lesson by Geelong. And Max Holmes, I think we agree, you and I, that with Dangerfield, who's probably the best man on the ground to that point. And just the role that Close and look at them, look at the work rate. Close is on the half-back flank here, Damo. He, Myers, and to a lesser extent Tyson Stengel, the run and carry and their ability to help out in defence but then get forward to get to the feet of Cameron and Hawkins. They have huge engines.
How does a 34-year-old at 6'8" pick that up and then handball like that, Lordo?
Yeah, outstanding. Just the system of Geelong. and Sydney have a great system as well. It's going to be a brilliant grand final.
Another key facet of what the Cats have been able to do this year, Lord, is how they've set up defensively. Now, it's always been a strong suit since Tom Stewart joined the mix, but take us through how the Lions were just incapable of getting any form of penetration into the part of the ground that they needed to.
Everyone just owns a patch of grass, and this doesn't just happen. Geelong have trained for this for years and years and years. What they haven't done then, they've been too slow once they've won the ball back with what to do with it. Now they go fast, which is what's their biggest weapon at the moment. So they defend as well as any team in the comp, but then they hurt you. So this is just Brisbane's confusion, Damo. We just want to show they don't know what to do here.
And look, you wouldn't be planning for Harris Andrews to be grabbing that ball twice that we've just seen in these two passages of play at that moment.
Yeah, Darcy Gardner, you don't want him kicking it in either. And we had a go at Danaher. He was disappointing. Hipwood was disappointing, but you wouldn't have wanted to be a forward up against the numbers of Geelong.
Talking about 134-year-old a moment ago in Tom Hawkins. What about the other one in Joel Selwood, Lord? He went into the year thinking it's going to be his last year. He's probably done that for 2 or 3 years, to be honest. But his form has been extraordinary.
What I love about it, he played 68% game time, but in that he got 6 clearances, 7 tackles, 5 inside 50s, and he's accepted his role. He and Dangerfield, I'm sure, would have been hurt at times, frustrated with Chris Scott, saying, why aren't I starting games on the ground? Why aren't I starting big moments?
Because they're proud.
They're proud, but they're also seeing 10 blokes at Geelong that have improved out of sight because they've got greater responsibility.
And the improvement in those guys is making them better in this 2022 team.
And they're going to get another premiership, a big chance too, with the change in roles. And Chris Scott, bold coaching, and also a lot of coaches aren't willing to do. Remember, he started a season, Ablett in the centre bounce, Selwood, Dangerfield. It was the greatest, but it didn't work for them. Whereas I think the system and the roles that are played now have got them to a grand final and their best chance of winning one.
Better than the 2020.
I think so.
Even though they were 22 points up just before half-time against Richmond, this is a better team.
Well, we interviewed Nigel Lappin on 3AW pre-game and he said, I don't think there's a standout side this year. Melbourne were a standout last year. Richmond were a standout, but I think they believe we are the standout this time around.
While we're on the veterans, let's go to another one. Paddy Dangerfield for this week's Crypto.com Brave Play of the Week, Lotto. Look at this is the opening seconds of the game. This is pure bravery. Now, he doesn't know there's nothing coming at him, but he does not think twice, Paddy Dangerfield, about turning away from the ball and running with it into potential catastrophe.
35, 37 seconds into the game, he does that, and then he goes back and kicks the goal. And you're always looking for signs as a coach or as a player in the first minute or two. And Paddy Dangerfield said, get on my back, I'm taking you to a grand final.
He's been rested throughout the course of the year, as has Joel Selwood, sometimes to Joel Selwood's angst, Lordo. But have a look at how they have managed this. Now, some of those numbers attached to the games missed of these players have been injury. And I mean, Gary Rowan's clearly one of those. I mean, Paddy Dangerfield was an injury-enforced layoff, but they made so sure that he was right before he came back. They added a couple of weeks to that.
They had a lot of illness in last year's final series, which was what we heard. But I think they've planned this year to the minute, really, and they've got no excuses if they don't win it. They are so well prepared, and they were managing Joel Selwood in round 4 for this grand final.
He didn't want to be taken out of that team that they played against the Lions. It got their season going, by the way. He was angry, Lord.
Paddy Dangerfield, you're going to have a month off. So all these things, I think Duncan's been rested, Blixarve, Stewart, have all had a rest at some stage. So Geelong are such a wonderful football club, as are Sydney, off the field, on the field. That's why we're going to get a wonderful grand final.
They won 2 finals, the Lions, so that is a massive tick, I think, from where they came from. But ultimately, they fell very short in a prelim final. They'll get Will Ashcroft in as their father-son pick. As we speak, they're very well placed to get Josh Dunkley in as well. That's going to help them in 2023 immensely.
Yeah, looking at where they've got to improve, I think their midfield depth they'll get through Dunkley and Ashcroft. I think their forward line mix, McStay going out might not be the worst thing because I think the 3 tools didn't work for them. And strategy, to me, is still a big one, that how they were taught a lesson on prelim time by Chris Scott and the coaches' box.
Just a quick snapshot, Lordo. You and I will analyse this game very deeply on Friday on an Access All Areas special edition. But as you sit here today on the Monday, who wins? Why?
I think Geelong win the grand final, Damo. I just don't see any weakness. They've been won 15 in a row for a reason. And apart from Collingwood, in that first final. I don't think anyone's got near them or close to beating them.
Yep.
So I think they should be too strong on Saturday.
I'm with you on that, as much as I've loved the Swans all season. Lloydie, as you know, and before you go, you've been counting down your bravest finals moments across AFL social media platforms over the past few weeks, and number one will be announced tomorrow, thanks to the team at Crypto.com. There will also be a live panel at the AFL's Virgin Australia Footy Festival at 9:30 a.m. Friday morning, with a group of AFL legends discussing their own brave moments. There'll be two AFL Grand Final tickets up for grabs, so make sure you get down there to find out how you can win those tickets. And as always, thank you for watching Access All Areas, and we will see you again on Friday this week for a special Grand Final preview episode of the show.